Well, Nicole Zettelmoyer with Wreaths by Nicole P. Thank you so much for joining us on the VOB. And yeah, just in true VOB form, I have some questions for you. So first, tell me about your time in the military. What did you do, and what was your favorite duty station, and why?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a unique background when it comes to serving in the military. After I graduated from college, I left for Marine Corps basic training. And so I was a Marine for 4 years. And during my time in the Marines, I served as a regional musician, which in less fancy terms is I was in the band.
Ah,
So I play bassoon. So my college education is in bassoon and music education. And and contrary to what everybody thinks with the Washington, D.C. and the automatic promotion to E6, there is such thing called a regional musician. And that's somebody that goes through all the regular Marine Corps training. You are a Marine day in and day out, and you start as an E2 and you go to school and you go become an E3. Like it's a you're still in it with everybody. So it's always a common misconception I always have to clear up with people is there's regular ones as well. um, and so after all my training, I was in New Orleans, Louisiana at the at the reserve base there. It's just one giant four-story building. And it's the Marine Corps Reserve headquarters. But our mission was to cover any reserve ceremonies, which meant we could go anywhere in America and play ceremonies. And we act as a kind of like a connection between the community and the Marine Corps. So our job was to serve as like a public relations and recruitment factors. So we would go in all these towns where people would never see Marines, and we'd be like, we're really cool. And there would be a recruiter in the back. So, if we played a concert for them, the first time they saw someone in blues, and then there's a recruiter standing in the back with his blues, to try to just like convey a positive image of the Marines.
nice.
So yeah, it's kind of the lowdown of our job. And also while I was in the Marines, I was a martial arts instructor. So I did that on the side, which was a lot of fun, a lot of physical stuff. And then after the Marines, I joined the civilian world for 10 months, hated it. And I had actually moved to San Antonio for my job. And somebody was like, hey, there's a bassoon opening in the Air Force for uh at the base right here, you should audition. And I auditioned not thinking I was going to make it, made it. And so then I served another 4 years in the Air Force, and I got out last year. So in the Air Force, same deal as the Marines. We have regional musicians. You do the same mission more or less. And while I was in the Air Force, I served as a resiliency training instructor as well as a victim advocate. So I dealt with sexual assault victims and stuff on the side. So those were two really rewarding jobs that I got to do within the Air Force as well.
No, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, get to so am I allowed to ask which one you preferred?
Oh,
You
yikes.
you can decide. That's fine if you don't want to answer that.
Well, okay, so each has their perks, right? And they're like, so I always joke that you're more of a musician in the Air Force than an airman, but you're more of a Marine in the Marines than a musician. So I really enjoyed the fact that the Air Force took their music and the quality of their music so seriously. Like, and I'm not to knock the Marines, but like in my Air Force unit, I think almost all of us at least had an undergraduate degree, and I'd say 50% of us had a master's degree. I got my master's while I was in the Marine Corps. And then the Marines, I was one of the few to actually have a college education. So it just the maturity and the musical content in the Air Force was really nice. However, I still don't know the words to the Air Force song. So like the pride that the Marines instilled in you, that's something that I really enjoyed about the Marines is like you're always a Marine, and so that
We're
part of
always
it.
learning.
Yeah. So each had their perks and differences and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a great answer, and then I love that. Sorry to put you on the spot. I know.
No, 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 I love it.
I try not to do that, but I'm like, I'm really curious. Which one did you like better? Not the Navy though. I mean, like, so my background's Navy. I know a lot of Navy musicians, and you never wanted to go that route, huh?
I so well, it's funny because I at the School of Music we got to hang out like we all did our training together at the Naval School of Music in Virginia Beach. So I'm very friendly with a bunch of them from my time there. And honestly, when I left college and I was looking for a marine musician job, or a military musician job, I had no idea there was a Navy band and I had no idea there was an Air Force band. I just thought there was Army and Marines, and I contacted both, and the Marines called me back first. I wish there was a more glamorous reason why I joined the Marines, but but
That's
clueless
awesome.
Nicole just put her head down and ran forward with it. So didn't know I was getting myself into the harder of all of the, more physically
Yeah.
demanding of all the services, but meh.
Well, that is like definitely, a feedback response for the Navy and Air Force recruiters that they're not doing a good job of pushing the music
Right?
field when they could have had you, but no, it's the Marines. And then the Army's just slow. Sorry,
Right.
guys.
Yeah. My husband was in the Army for 8 years and he joined the Air Force too. We joke, we think smart, not hard. Oh, there's my
I
cat. Sorry, don't mind my cat. Just, hello.
Aw. Yeah, my dad was in the Army too, so I
Oh,
like to
nice.
make fun at them.
Yeah, we like poking fun too. It's good fun.
So why did you or how did you come up with the idea to start your business?
Yeah, so in July of 2020, I was home on leave. I was still active duty in the Air Force, and the Air Force was switching over from their ABUs to their OCPs. And I brought my ABUs home with me on leave, and I was like, "Hey, mom, very creative mother of mine, I want to make my uniforms into a wreath." I had like briefly heard of the idea, but I didn't really like the way that any of them looked. And so my mom and I kind of came up with this, I don't know, it's not patented, but like design. It's a very simple design, but and we made one for myself, and I posted a picture. I have like a messy bun and like sweatpants, and like the wreath looks atrocious. It was a horrible prototype, but compared to what it looks like now. But and I posted it on Facebook and I was like, "Hey y'all, look what I made." And a few of my friends were like, "You should try and sell these." And I was like, "Okay, why not?" And so I was selling kind of onesies and twosies of them for about 6 months, just like under the table, not official. And and then I had made a wreath from one of my friend's uncle's uniforms from 1947, and they came out really nice, and I posted a picture of them, and one of my friends who I had worked with in the civilian sector between my service time started working at a news station, and down here in San Antonio it's called Ken's 5, which is like the local news station. And she was like, "Hey, we want to do an interview with you and your wreaths because it's December 2020, it's Christmas time, it's COVID, everyone wants a feel good story, right?" And so we did the interview and it was great. And she goes, "Yeah, by the way, I sent it out to 20 regional news affiliates." And I was like, "Okay." And then I got started getting emails from people from like Dallas and South Carolina and all these random places. And then the next day, People Magazine reached out to me and they're like, "We saw your article. We want to do a thing for you." And I was like, "Cool." And then the next day, Fox reached out and they were like, "We saw this thing. We want to talk to you." And so it ended up being People, Fox, Late Night with David Muir, CBS in the morning. And in December of 2020, it just kind of blew up. And so I had no idea. I didn't even have a website. I had like my own personal email address, and like and so I kind of learned how to have to be a business real quick because I ended up having to create a wait list that had 2,000 people on it.
Oh.
And yeah, so I finally finished that wait list in May of 2023. And so to give you an idea of how many wreaths I've made in about 3 years, I've made probably about 2,500 wreaths in 3 years. And in December of 22 is when I got out. So for a decent amount of that time, I was active duty, but it was COVID. So we were working from home. So I was kind of lucky enough to be able to focus some of my time on that, just because we were working from home. So yeah, that's kind of the origin story. As an unintentional thing went super viral, but um I think the thing that people really connect to is the story. Like people really liked the idea that a veteran was taking people's uniforms and making these wreaths and sharing their stories and um just kind of the personal aspect of it. I think really drew people's attention in on it. So I was very lucky for all of that.
Well, that's it. I mean, that is a big thing with a lot of small businesses is, like maybe, there's like 1,000, probably more than 1,000, like t-shirt makers or coffee, all these different things. But like and some people shut it down right there because they feel like there's already somebody doing it. Why do I
Mhm.
have another one? But that's not the point. The point is that you make it yours. And a lot of times people are not buying because of the product. I mean, sometimes it is, right?
Yeah,
Stanley,
yeah.
but
With the Stanley Cups,
yeah,
right? Stanley's been in business for 100 years, and now all of a sudden they make things for basic girls like me, and then now everybody wants one because of the
yeah,
branding and yeah, it's exactly that.
yeah. It's
Mhm.
the story, it's the branding. I mean, if you could have the best product out there, or best service out there, but if nobody knows who you are, then you
Or if
know,
you're a schmuck. Yeah,
yeah, or if you're stuck,
Yeah.
that's the thing. But like having that story and being authentic, I think I mean, it's incredible. And that's I'm so happy for you that you've had that type of like just in the few years that you've been in business to have that opportunity or those opportunities. And holy smokes, over 2,000 wreaths. Like I don't know if I could even count 2,000 wreaths in 3 years. Like I don't
It didn't feel like that many until, like, you look back at the numbers, and I was like, because I have, every picture of wreaths that I've made on my phone, it just saved in a separate album, and, like, I sometimes orders have more than 1 wreath, and in the album alone, I have 1,314 photos. So, you would think that, a decent amount of those have more than 1 wreath, so then you do the math, and it's, like, definitely somewhere around the 2,500 range. So, it's a rough estimation, but yeah.
so what is your why or your mission?
I love the idea of honoring veterans and telling their stories. Um, I think, I'm such a military buff and I like history buff and I love the stories of World War II and love watching these documentaries of all these people doing all these heroic things and I really just love the idea that sorry, Arnold, stop. My cat is playing with this bag. Um, and just the idea of having a unique way to honor veterans is really cool. Like I said, my slogan is every wreath tells a story. And I think it's really cool that, I'm able to like customize these wreaths. Like, oh, you can even just tell when they served by the uniform they wore, or if they uh send in patches, you can be like, oh, these were the units that they were in, or they put their ribbon rack, and a ribbon rack alone really tells your military story, and um or your rank, and were you an officer, were you enlisted, that changes the experience you had in the military. And so yeah, I really enjoy that part of my business.
That's awesome. Oh man, I have a lot of questions for you, but we'll probably I don't know, maybe I'll ask them later. So what do you and you probably already kind of answered this, but what do you love most about what you do?
Yeah, I love hearing the story, or like the reactions of customers after they get their stuff. Um, I was like this close to making my slogan "Making Grown Men Cry" since 2020, but I changed it. I was like, people might get a little offended about that, but it's true. It's wild. Like people, some people, I've had a few people send me videos, which has been so cool, and a bunch more people send me photos of their dad, their 7-year-old dad holding their uniform, or you could see their eyes are just a little wet and teary while they're holding it. So yeah, I really like, I think it's so cool, and it's such an honor that people either trust me with their uniforms or, just trust me with my, sending their money to me and trusting me with my services to provide them this this service. And I've even been lucky enough to make wreaths for Gold Star families, which I remember the
Oh,
first time I received a uniform for one of them, I actually was just like sobbing as I was cutting it up because it just, it's like, you trust me with this, like with this coveted thing. And so yeah,
yeah.
I've done a few Gold Star family ones, and each time they kind of hit me in the feels. And I've even done ones from World War One, which I was like, oh my gosh, kind of like, oh my god. But no one's putting a gun to their heads to send me them. You know what I mean? It's like this is what they choose to do with their uniforms, and I'm happy to provide them that service. So
What
a
is
lot
it?
of things, I guess. That was more than one thing, but I love it all.
All about the feels, right? That's what you
Uh-huh,
do best, the feels. No,
100%.
that's amazing. I mean, that was my first thought when you were talking about the 1940s. I was like, "Holy cow, like, you don't get a second chance with that." Like,
Oh, I know, I know.
but that's, and yeah, definitely not with the Blue Star families as well, but yeah, that's just incredible. Um, so what would you say was your biggest learning curve when starting?
I mean, just how to become a business, right? Or like all the ins and outs. I mean, before we started the recording, I was talking about how I'm finally making a business plan and how it's taking me all day. I you know, I, I didn't know the first thing to start with. I literally like Googled like how to start a small business because I was like, I have 2,000 people expecting wreaths from me. And they hadn't paid yet, but like I have these people expecting these wreaths from me, and I don't want to go to jail.
Right?
So,
Well, you'd have plenty of time in jail if you I'm just
right,
kidding.
yeah, I'll just sit there making wreaths. So, I kind of started with the basics of, okay, Texas. What do I need from Texas? Texas sales permit, a DBA, an EIN, which learned the hard way. You don't have to pay for one of those. Fun fact, you don't have to pay for somebody to do an EIN. I paid $250 for someone to make my EIN. Yeah, financial mistakes are gonna happen, but, I was so desperate just to start and I needed it quick. Um, so yeah, figuring out the literal logistics, like the legal logistics, the taxes, and, you know, uh, the number crunching, and, attaching sales tax to purchases to give back to Texas. And I'm in e-commerce, so how do I do sales tax from other states because I sell in Texas, but obviously someone from Arizona is going to have to pay taxes. Now I have something on my website that's an automated thing that does it for
Nice.
me and
Yeah,
pays it forward. So I'm happy to pay $80 a year for that. A lot less of a headache, but yeah, yeah, a lot of mistakes just because I had to do it so quickly and I didn't have the time to make the business plan and do the startup ideas and gather opinions from people about how to do things. It was all kind of full speed ahead right from the get.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Also a little scary, but like
Yeah, so now it's January of 2024 and the holiday season is finally over, and I joke that I'm finally doing all of the things I should have done in December of 2020. Like the business plan, I finally bought a nice camera so I can do product photos and not just take iPhone photos from the ground. And um
well, you
uh
know, iPhones are doing pretty well these days, so
they are, but man, these new product photos I got, oh, chef's kiss. I got the cheapest camera and the cheapest light box, but it makes a world of difference. So yeah, just things like that that I'm little things that I wish I could have done sooner. I'm finally doing now.
good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that business thing, I feel like that's the biggest learning curve for a lot of people. That or
Yeah.
product, where it is that they're purchasing to make whatever it is they're making, but, no, I think
Mhm.
business part, and especially if you're dealing with different states, that's a huge thing, and you have a tangible product. Um, yeah, good on you for
Yeah.
that. Smart on using that thing that automatically configures everything.
Yes. Avalara. I use Wix as my like website designer, and then it's like in an app that you add on called Avalara, whatever. I don't know.
You're not getting paid by or by them, so you don't if it's wrong.
Yeah, for real.
So what kind of advice would you give someone wanting to start their own business, regardless of what industry they're in?
Yeah. It's funny because this is something I finally started taking some business classes too. I did a little bit through the Vetrepreneur Warrior Rising program. I started looking at those videos, but I literally 2 days ago just started my first Bunker Labs 8-week course. Yeah, and it's a female one, but I mean they're all the same. But yeah, and I think the biggest thing uh, that I realized is to not worry about marketing as much as making sure your product is something that people actually want. What I mean by that is like you could have what you think is the coolest thing that everybody's going to want, but then the first and you start advertising it on Facebook and you spend all this money on marketing and product branding and all this stuff when you just didn't ask like six people if they want to actually buy it, you know? um I think, and I understand you need to believe in your product as well, but I think making sure you do the initial research to make sure that it's actually like there's actually a pain that you can solve in the market, I think is really important. Like for example, every time like I did some local holiday markets this past Christmas at like the Pearl, we call it the Pearl Farmers Market, and people that were walking by my booth, so many of them were like, that's such a cool idea. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like and just kind of saying to me that it's a validated thing that people would want and that it's something that people don't know that they want. Now my problem is marketing, right? Because I now know that it's something that people would actually want because if 80% of the people that walk by have to stop and go, "Whoa, that's really cool." That to me is like a sign that it's something that people actually do want. If
Yeah.
you make this really obscure thing and people just keep blowing by your booth and not even giving you the time of day, maybe you should reconsider. So, I guess that's my biggest thing.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great thing. And you're in a prime location. I mean, that's where the
Yeah.
Air Force like
San Antonio's military city. We got 3 military bases right here alone. So, and it's kind of a big place where veterans retire and,
yeah.
um,
I mean,
yeah,
if
so
you
I'm
were
very
out in the
fortunate.
middle of nowhere where there were no military bases, then it probably wouldn't make sense for there. You'd really have to market outside of your
Yeah, yeah.
so what are you most excited about right now about the
Um, I guess I'm excited to start. So I just started working with this guy. His name is Alex from Funnel Science, and I had never heard of this idea. And I'm gonna give him a shout out, and him and his business a shout out. Uh, and he's like a m- marketing kind, like analytics kind of guy. So they like apply like scientific ideas to marketing to ensure that like you're effectively marketing. And that's something that I have spent so much wasted money on and so many idiotic opportunities trying to market, which what I thought at the time was a good idea. And now looking back on it, it didn't provide me nearly enough clicks or views or like I, I have like a tiny little brick and mortar location in this spot and I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's not doing me well and things like that. So I'm really excited to start working with him because even just the one phone call we had when he was the guy to be like, your product photos look like crap, fix that. And I'm like, and I did, and I'm like, oh my god, this makes a world of a difference for my branding, and little things like that. So we just started working together, and obviously I'm paying them, but I'm really excited to see how he can help my business mature. I think is the big thing because right now everything is scrapped together and it's just kind of willy-nilly and it's worked because it's worked, but now I want to sophisticate it, and so I'm really excited to start doing that side of it, to like really make it a business and not just a survival.
Okay. And then so where do you see yourself in the next year or even the next 5 years?
Yeah, my goal is for Wreaths by Nicole P. I'd love to sell in more brick and mortar locations. Um, like I sell at one right now where it's for service dogs, military service dogs, and they have veteran owned businesses that sell like their stuff at a brick and mortar location. And I think that would be really cool to branch out, like, for businesses that just sell veteran made things or military things or things like that. And Another one I really hope to start diving into a little more, and I hadn't even thought of this until somebody reached out to me, is the realtor market for closing gifts.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of realtors that deal with a lot of veterans and veteran cities. I have one where I already kind of developed this little wholesale business model for him. And so now every time he closes, I make a specific wreath for his customer. And trying to figure out how to get recurring customers, I guess, is my big thing. Because you think of a wreath and it's kind of one and done. So getting recurring customers is kind of one of my big goals for the next few years. And if I'm able to expand and hire more employees, that would be awesome. I have a few contractors that are military spouses, and I really want to try to reach out to that community and help them out more because a lot of military spouses can't leave their houses to find regular jobs and stuff. And so with my contracting, I allow them to work at home, work at their own pace, as little or as much as they want. And, whatever their schedule is like, if they're dealing with children or, taking care of somebody. Um, so yeah, if I can hire more contractors to help me out, if, the business starts expanding more, um, that would be really great too. I don't know if I'd like one day eventually to stop making them and to have somebody else make them. But for me, that's a hard thing for me to let go of.
Yeah.
But
So, like all the really special one so your wreaths are, I mean, obviously some of them are from uniforms that people have worn, but
mhm,
do you, like what percentage is that versus one that somebody just wants something in the uniform
uh, I'd
material?
say about 50-50. I'd say about a 50-50 split. There are times where it's like 70-30, like send in your uniforms versus not. But yeah, I think as of late, I'd say it's about 50-50. And I mean, thanks to when I went viral, a lot of the news stations were like, hey, if you have uniforms that you're not using, send them to Nicole. And so during that time, I mean, I had uniforms coming out my ears. And so that's why I hired contractors to help cut them for me just to save space. Um, and so now I have a plethora of every fatigue in stock. That's the one thing. I don't have dress uniforms in stock because it's just too much to keep a hold of. But if people send me their dress ones, I'll use them. So I think that's the appeal for sending your own stuff. But yeah, I'd say it's about a 50-50 split.
Okay. And so how can how can our fellow veterans best support you?
Just sharing my page and liking it and just spreading it out. I get a lot of traction through Facebook. Um, I got a lot of traction through the demographic of women between the ages of like 40 and 65 or so. Um, I think it's like 88% of my Facebook followers are women or something like that. It's wild. You just think because men aren't the ones to really decorate your house or things like that. It's really like the wives want to do these things for their husbands and things like that. I know there are women that serve, but the statistics speak for themselves. So, yeah, I guess just, sharing my business, a like, a follow, a comment, a share, it can really go a long way in terms of metrics, in terms of the algorithm and stuff like that. It's an underestimated thing, but it's free and it's easy. And so that's why I always recommend it.
So what social platforms are you on besides Facebook?
Uh, Instagram. My Instagram isn't as bumping as my Facebook is, but I'm trying to make it as relevant. And that's another one of my goals, just to try to kind of spread out through more social media platforms, but I am not hip with the youth. So I also like my Facebook page. Um But yeah, Instagram and Facebook, and then I have a website too, so people can reach out to me through that as well.
Cool. Well, awesome. And of course, like when we do the blog post or whatever, all that information will be in there
Cool.
too. And so that is all the questions that I have for you today. Now it's just that time for you to give us our pitch or give us your pitch.
All right. So it's a work in progress because remember, I'm just starting to do my business for real, right? But I like to say that Reads by Nicole P has two general purposes or two general, problems that it can solve, right? The first is, what to do with your old uniforms. A lot of people say that they just have their old uniforms stuck in the back of a closet and they have nothing to do with them and they don't know what to do with them. And I feel like my business is a way to memorialize your uniforms in a really unique fashion, in a way that you can display your service to your friends and family. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is just finding a unique way to honor our veterans. So even if you don't have a uniform, if you do, um, I feel like my business is a way to honor them in a respectful manner by properly, displaying the uniform next to an American flag, and it's just feeling that sense of pride and patriotism that comes with serving in the military. And I really pride myself on personalization, customer experience. I really want to make sure that the customer is getting exactly what they want. Um, Providing them with an experience where they feel comfortable to send their uniforms or not, or just feel comfortable enough to send their stories to me and share them with other people that really want to know about them. And so I feel like I'm also kind of simultaneously creating this community where we can all honor veterans together.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.